We'll stick the back way.
So they're quiet, no recoil. They're not like a, 240. No, 243.
The big one, he's got little ones. I'll put all my big ones out first, and if I got more people.
Yeah. So this thing,
So
you can shoot without earplugs or anything.
just has to put the signs up. That's about
Not near as violent.
Somebody asked me the other day,
Yeah.
what time to open the door, and I said, that's a tough decision.
Too many people are, you don't know what.
I don't want to offend anybody. I stopped it, but there's a lot of, we went up the afraid to last week. I said, if I go to their door, I thought I could go to their door, wear a mask, knock on the door and then step back.
He said, what are
I
you?
don't think that's.
Some people,
My phone out. You need to explain.
Oh, yeah, you ready for a
door?
I cannot have anything in mind that I but if I saw the.
I just think it's.
Because I got a whole bunch of questions.
I want a 4440. I want it like an 1873.
I mean, people know you. or-
They know.
6 yellow point.
They do it.
If they don't know you by now, I mean, you see them, they're not gonna.
I have done some.
7 Rob.
Yeah.
I mean, I just like one and I walked in the booth, I'm saying there was hanging out calves there.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's
Gonna
The
be.
problem I've got.
What brand was it?
Put the size in it.
Is Eller's gonna come by a.
Like the Hawkeye? Was it wood one or
And I'm not all the Republican.
77?
oh gosh.
And I'm like,
Yep, 10 o'clock. Oh,
this is.
there it is. Okay. This meeting will be held in person and by WebEx, video, phone conference, streamed live on the internet. Public may join the meeting via WebEx, in person at the meeting room, or watch the live stream. If joining the meeting in person, the total number of persons, including commissioners, cannot exceed 10, and social distancing of at least 6 feet will be in effect. The governor of the state of Minnesota has issued emergency executive order 20-78, extending the COVID-19 peacetime emergency, declared in executive order 20-01. On March 24th, 2020, the Pine County Board of Commissioners declared a local emergency for Pine County. Based on these conditions, the chair of the Pine County Board of Commissioners has determined that the requirements of Minnesota Statute 13D-021 Subdivision 1 have been met, and it is not practical or prudent for all members of the county board to regularly meet in person. Public is invited to join the meeting in person or remotely by phone, and the codes are listed there. Anyway, we will call the meeting to order and rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Public forum. Is there anybody on the call that wants to speak at public forum? Not seeing anybody that's jumping and waving their arm or anything. All right. We'll move on to the agenda. I'll go through the additions. David?
Sure, Mr. Chair. There are one correction, and that's to the investment committee minutes as part of regular agenda item number 2. And the total project cost in those minutes would be 1.7 million, and it's actually listed as 1.625. And then there's an addition to the agenda, item number 4.1, Resolution 2020-60, supporting the continuation of the Challenge Incarceration Program at Willow River.
But we will move as amended.
Thank you.
Rick Rob, second.
Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. I think we.
Aye.
Aye.
I think you should do a roll call because we're still operating under the emergency.
We can do that. Debbie, you want to call the roll?
I sure will. District 5, Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye.
District 1, Chair Holland.
Yes.
District 2, Commissioner Moore.
Aye.
District 3, Commissioner Chafee.
Aye.
District 4, Commissioner Mickert.
Aye.
Okay. We'll look for approval of the minutes of the August 18th County Board minutes and summary for publication, and the August 25th special meeting of the Committee of the Whole, the budget meeting.
Motion to approve.
I'll second.
Motion by Chafee, seconded by Moore. Any discussion? Clerk will call the roll.
District 1, Chair Holland.
Yes.
District 2, Commissioner Moore.
Aye.
District 3, Commissioner Chafee.
Aye.
District 4, Commissioner Mickert.
Aye.
District 5, Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye.
And then the minutes of boards, reports, and correspondence, the 2020 primary election canvassing board minutes of August 13th, and the Pine County Land Surveying monthly report for August. And that's it.
I'll move that.
Second, Ludwig. Motion by Moore, second by Ludwig. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
District 2, Commissioner Moore.
Aye.
District 3, Commissioner Chafee.
Aye.
District 4, Commissioner Mickert.
Aye.
District 5, Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye.
District 1, Chair Holland.
Yes. Move on to the consent agenda. You've had that in front of you for a few days, so anybody has any questions on that? Otherwise, we'll look for a motion for approval.
Crowd will move.
McGrath moves, Chafee seconds, the consent agenda. Any discussion? Not, the clerk will call the roll.
District 3, Commissioner Chafee.
Aye.
District 4, Commissioner Mickert.
Aye.
District 5, Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye.
District 1, Chair Holland.
Yes.
District 2, Commissioner Moore.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to the regular agenda. We'll have, Matt, you want to, anything extra than the minutes for the insurance committee report?
Well, I gave an extensive report last board meeting.
Yep.
What, this meeting was called because the bids came back, because we went out to bid. The service cooperative that we are now a member of, it's going to be, their best and final was a 13.5% increase. So then, and that's staying exactly the way we are now. Then there was a bid, also by Blue Cross Blue Shield, moving on to the self-insure model. They presented a bid there too to manage that, and that was 13.46%. The new thing. United Healthcare came in at 11.62%. That also was a self-insure model. The other companies that bid were not even. So those were the three we looked at. So then the discussion was, okay, how are we going to move forward? A lot of discussion. No decision was made. We're still contemplating the move. So to break it down in the self-insured, the first one, the way we are is, we all know that plan. If the county does decide to go to a self-insured model, then it breaks down. Blue Cross Blue Shield had I think it's called a mature contract. And then United Healthcare had an immature contract. And a way to look at that is it's a 12, an immature contract is a 12-12. It's a 12-month run. So if we started on January 2021, it would go through 2021 and then end on December 1st, 2021. Then any bills that came after that would not be funded. That's what an immature contract. Blue Cross Blue Shield, their self-insured model had a mature contract which covered out another 6 months. That isn't, it doesn't sound, it sounds scary, but the whole idea is the savings you have with our management and stuff. So we're still working on that, trying to figure that out. So then the discussion was, do we stay with the cooperative? Do we move to self-insure? And that's kind of where we're sitting right now. I think it's fair to say we're still kind of deliberating as a committee there to figure out how we can make that work. Another way to look at that is if we stayed, if we stayed with where we are, it still costs us. That's why there's a 13%, 13.5. It's based on our last year's usage. So we're going to pay one way or another. And when you look at it, what we're trying to figure out is how we can keep from having 13.5% increases every year. Can we spread that and manage it? And if we could build a pool, we might be able to do that. And that's what we're really trying to figure out. The committee is, I've had a few phone calls back from the committee members just in the last week. And I think I'm not going to discuss them now. I'll save that for the committee, but I'm getting ideas from them. At least they're giving me some ideas to go forward. So I think we'll discuss it at the committee level. I don't know what's going to happen for sure. Is there anything you want to fill in, Steve?
No, I think you covered it well. I've also got a little advice from a few employees.
Yeah. I'm sure you're getting the same phone calls. Yeah.
Which I appreciate. It's always scary to do something different than done before. But the whole goal of this thing is to try to even out our costs so we don't have, if you look back at the 5-year history even, but for sure 10 years, we've had 15% increases and 3% increases. We even had some decreases. If we could, I think our average is about 7% if we go back 10 years. Mm-hmm. There should be a way that we could build that in, then we can budget for it so we don't have these huge spikes and valleys. And I think we can do that. I know we can do that if we manage it ourselves.
And I have another comment if I could. And there was discussion because of COVID, which we're all sitting here thinking, is that going to have a huge impact? In reality, COVID has probably saved the insurance companies some dollars so far because of the routine surgeries and then that kind of thing was not happening at a pace that it was happening, which is not necessarily good for the public's well-being, but there's a dollar impact there. But what they don't know is what that COVID response is going to do, the years out, just like we have the next year. And like when we're trying to do a budget, there is going to be some impact. So,
Mr. Chair,
does it pay to ride it where we are? I don't know. We don't have to decide until when, Dave? When's our decision time? That's what I don't really know. It has to be like
October.
because we have to renew by.
Yeah, so
I think we got about a month.
So we're going to be jamming a meeting in there again and come back to the board and hash it over.
Mr. Chair, this is Dave Minke, and Justin is planning to come and present remotely to the September 15th board meeting of all the information that we have so far, so that all commissioners can ask questions and get the information. And then he believes that we could have until the end of October to make a decision as to how we wanted to proceed. So that would give us a good month or so in order to continue to explore and to make a decision.
I will say one thing that has really helped us is when we brought Justin on board to start working with us, because if you remember our typical cycle, we would have just found out within the last week or so of what our rate would be for next year. Well, when you find out in August, you don't have the time that your rates are going up 13%. You don't have time to put an RFP together to even get alternative bids. And that's what we were stuck in for years. You got what you got.
Oh, I think he got us 50 days at least.
Yeah. The other thing that I have come to realize is, we can get as mad as we want at the insurance company, but our rates are really reflective of how much usage we have. We have, in my simple mind, I've figured if we stay where we're at and our usage goes up, we pay for it the next year in a huge rate increase. If we self-insure and our usage goes up, we pay for it this year. We're going to pay for it one way or the other.
Yeah, really the only thing that really changes for us if we self-insure is that fixed cost.
That fixed cost.
That we pay resource.
Yeah.
And that's a big number.
A big number.
Do have a lot of other counties are self-insured?
Yes, a lot of other counties and counties our size are, just because of cost contain, the management part of it, it takes a little bit more work on our part because we have to pay a bill. Is it every week, Kelly? Instead of once a quarter or whenever we pay now. So, you're cutting checks every week, but
I'm just curious, why can't entities combined, like counties? I mean, you've got a larger pool than.
Well, we had that discussion, not on the individual policy and plans. They would be individual counties, but on the stopgap coverage, so we don't get burned by a big one, counties can join on that stopgap coverage because there's a huge advantage there to protect.
So is there something that prohibits that, David? Other than economic?
no, except that somebody has to put that package together. And that's kind of what Resources has been doing for us, is putting that package together, but they suck off a pretty big management fee for doing that. So,
I just was curious.
Yeah, and Resources has been working in the last couple of years with the smaller groups to try to create a single renewal rate for everybody. Even though all of them have their own plans, there's just, when you're a smaller entity, if you maybe have, 10 or 15 contracts, 1 or 2 bad cases is unmanageable for you. So Resources has been starting to do that with the smaller jurisdictions. We have not found them willing to do that with the larger jurisdictions like ours.
So if you got an idea, let matter, I know we sit on that committee and we got about a month to figure it out. No other questions. We'll move on to the courthouse bonds. Todd on the line.
Yes, I am. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Great. I couldn't get on the video, so I'm just on by phone.
So I think we've been discussing refunding the bond for actually several months, as soon as we recognized that interest rates were likely to be favorable and it was callable. The complicated piece of this refunding is determining what projects to include in the refunding and how much money to cash out. And so we have been exploring several alternatives, and the latest list of projects includes, the original list had included furniture, and that has been excluded now as actually an ineligible cost. And so that cannot be included in the bond. But on the list for consideration and discussion is the jail camera system at $300,000, the courthouse remodel at $300,000, courthouse roof at $400,000, transfer station building in Pine City at $250,000, and transfer station in Willow River at $50,000, the Sandstone parking lot at $75,000, and the 1610 building roof at $75,000, for a total of $1,450,000. And so these projects can be included or removed, or potentially other projects could be added. And that might be the thing to decide today, is whether you have consensus on a project list, or if you have questions on a project list, not. And we do have a meeting on the 9th and a meeting on the 15th that you could make that final decision at as well. So you don't have to make it today if you're not ready.
So has everybody seen the savings already? I can't remember. Was that just at facility committee? That number of the,
We talked about it at the budget meeting.
Okay, yeah, we have, yeah, okay, I couldn't remember.
Do you want to recap of that though? Of kind of the options we've got on.
Yeah, that would be really good. And the number, the savings numbers,
Sure.
yeah.
So we've got kind of three options on the table. The first one is that we refund the bonds. We take no cash, which means that over the term of the remaining loan, we'll save about $825,000. So that means that the loan matures in February of 2021. We just have a savings of about $70,000 each year on the bond refunding. So that's option one. Option two is that we just capture that savings in cash right now and do some of these projects that we're talking about. So that would yield about $795,000 of cash to be able to do projects with. Option three is some number larger than the savings, so larger than the $795,000, that we could do the bigger list of projects with. We have had Todd and Ellers run all sorts of numbers and calculations. The latest calculation was at to be able to take an extra $1.4 million, which essentially pretty much covers the entire list you have in front of you, less the furniture, because that's an ineligible expense. And at that $1.4 million of cash out, what that does is it would have our payments stay level, but yet it adds just a very small interest payment in August of 2031, and then a new principal payment of $190,000 plus $1,100 of interest in February of 2032. So it adds a year, but that year you're adding is such a very small year. Total you're paying out $194,000 for that extra year that you wouldn't have been without the refunding.
And that's to get the basically extra $500,000.
The extra 1.5 million almost.
So what is the bond payment a year right now?
Right now, we're sitting at about $985,000.
So it's about $1 million.
Right, and so this is keeping that payment level.
And we'd be all done in 33?
You're all done in February of 2032.
Yeah.
Those last two, that last year of payments you're making is only $194,000 of payments. It's not even a full $1 million payment. It's a small little extra payment.
Kelly,
Yeah,
on option one, could you recap that? Did you say, when did that mature then?
so option one leaves maturity the same at February of 2031.
2031.
But we save
I didn't hear you.
$70,000 each year.
Yep, so it's Todd from Ellers, yep, so very well said on that. What we're doing is still saving, right, on the 2012A bond. We still have a savings of 830 some thousand. We're taking that savings, we're amortizing these new projects over that same period with that savings, and then we're really just adding on a little bit of maturities to the back of that bond, a little bit in 2031, and then a small amount in 2032. And what that does is the county doesn't have any tax impact then. That way, we're just sort of, we're not extending the maturity of the refunding, we're just adding these new projects into the savings stream and adding some maturities at the very back of this when your existing bonds are dropping off anyway.
And part of the conversation with adding these projects in is to save on that building fund. Every year we've been saving, or we've been putting $75,000 into that building fund. And so with wrapping these projects into this refunding, it would be to remove that $75,000 from the tax levy for the next year, 2 years, and revisit it.
Yep. And then we were also, through discussions with bond counsel, able to fit all this in with part of your existing capital improvement plan that we did a few years ago, and some other statutory authorities. So we do not need to hold a public hearing on the new project portion of this. So that was one of the goals I think we talked about at the Finance Committee.
The only issue I have, I don't know where we would get the money. I'm not real excited about bonding for, like cameras. Cause it seems like, the likelihood of them, well, I guess we still got some that worked since the jail started, so we'd be in that same boat. In 12 years, they'd be shot. But, if I could have some assurance that those cameras would last 12 years, I'd feel better about that. But it seems like any time we spend money on technology, the lifespan is shorter than that.
Have we, Mr. Chair, have we replaced some of the jail now to make it work? It seems to me that we did, and
we have started down that road. And
how many have we replaced?
I could not tell you how many we replaced.
Right, we replaced 0. We bought the new hardware, or the new
Recording
system, but we've replaced 0 cameras themselves. And so this is the actual cameras that are on the table.
Okay.
Because our cameras are from 2007 before.
Yeah, and they've scrounged and bought them on eBay or whatever to still make it work, but they're limping along.
I think what you're thinking is like the visiting area. We've got a few some technology in there, but it wasn't the actual jail. So there is some new cameras in the jail, but I don't remember, Ryan, exactly where they were or what they were. But
yeah, we have added cameras over the years with a different vendor to comply with PREA. But that's just a handful, maybe 10 to 11. And this would replace all of the cameras in the jail.
And the courthouse.
Yep.
The one thing I do know in this day and age, you can't run a jail without a good camera system. I mean, you spend more than the cameras on the first time we had a lawsuit that we couldn't defend.
So, Mr. Chair, can I ask a question? So we're going to be making the payments exactly the same as we would until 2031.
Correct.
And that's what we would be doing now.
Right.
So what is the final payment then for that? A little bit there in February. What is that number?
194,000. But it's not, you're not having to come up with 194,000 of new tax dollars, because you've already been levying almost $1 million every year before that.
Right.
In 2032, really, your levy goes down.
So we're gonna get 1.5 million right now, or is it 1.7? I saw both numbers.
Right now, the number's at 1.4.
Okay. And then in the end of this, we're paying exactly the same as it would be, but the only extra is 195,000.
Right.
Well, that's kind of a no-brainer.
That kind of seems like a good deal, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
That's why I want to understand how is that working so good? Just because of our savings?
Right. Right now, our interest rate is 3 to 4%, depending on where you look at it in the term, and where this interest rate is at. Our effective interest rate is below 1% on this new money.
And we don't have a crystal.
Kelly, what it,
Is below 1%.
below like 0.8 or something?
So 0.776 is our net interest cost.
So if we need to do a roof 5 years from now, and it's 300,000, we don't know what that interest rate's gonna be then.
Right, we have no idea what the number would be, but right now it's arm cheap.
So this list, I think, to me, it, like Matt said and Steve said, I think it's kind of a no-brainer to do what we're talking about, but the list, does that need to be decided today, or can that change as it goes forward? Or, because it does, I mean, this is just me, but, you know, does the courthouse roof need to be done this year?
It
Or,
wouldn't be done this year.
okay, and or even next year, or is it, I guess what I'm looking at is, you know, what is the, you know, do you replace a roof early? Do you replace it after you have all kinds of water damage? Where's the sweet spot on it? Just because we're getting decent money at a decent rate doesn't necessarily mean we want to put a $400,000 roof on a building, you know, if it's got 5 years left on it or something. I
think the idea, Josh, is because I had that discussion, I think, with Kelly a week or so ago, is that the roof is gonna last as long as it lasts. But when the building maintenance people determine that it's time to put the roof on, if it's 2017, let's say.
Yeah.
We've got this money we'll get in a fund that we can't spend it on anything else except these building improvement things. And then Kelly will invest that money, so we'll not make money on it, but it'll sit there and be ready for us to use at the time the roof. And I know Mark well enough, he's not gonna put a new roof on if he doesn't need it.
Yeah.
Because every roof, if it lasts 20 years, it's no use putting it on at 17.
Yeah.
And one thing, and Todd, this is a question for you too. We had talked about we have to spend 85% of the proceeds within 3 years. Is that 85% of our cash proceeds or 85% of the total bond proceeds?
Yeah, it's Todd from Ellers. Yeah, it's 85% of the total bond proceeds. So the cost of issuing the bonds gets paid right away. The refinancing part of it gets paid on 2/1 of 2021 coming up here. So a couple months after the closing in November. Yeah, and then the new money part is, so you get, I mean, essentially get, 3 years to spend this.
Okay.
So just to follow up that question, Todd, this is David. Where there's 3 years to spend 85% of the total bond proceeds?
Right.
And so
Generally.
that remaining 15%, is there a limit on that, or how long can that be? Does that have to be spent?
Yeah, that's what they call a de minimis portion. So that is sort of off the radar, so to speak, federal regulations. So you can let that hang out there for quite a while. But I think what you want to do is you want to clean up the books and close out the construction or project fund, as soon as you can. recommended not to have that hanging out there so long. Your auditor's gonna look at that and wonder, why maybe we should shut that down, let's spend it. And if you don't spend it, you put it into the debt service account or bond fund to pay the bonds. So that's another way to spend it, right?
Yeah, and I don't think it's wise to borrow money to sit on it either type of thing. I realize you want to use it, but I'm just thinking, like you said, if roofs are just one of them things, it's, if you don't need to replace it, don't replace it type of thing, because it's just gonna expire that much quicker.
Right.
So
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah, and so I guess based on what we just heard from Todd, if the roof didn't need to be replaced in 3 years, we would not have to spend the bond proceeds to replace the roof in 3 years. We could do that in 5 years if that's what the actual situation suggested.
So then,
Yeah.
can the list be modified going forward then, or is this list kind of finalized?
Oh, you have latitude. It really, we're just looking at uses of the bond proceeds. So if it doesn't have to go for those particular projects, but they have to sort of still fit within the statutory authority we're using. So yeah, there's some latitude there. It doesn't, like I said, it doesn't have to be specific, but if you're going to use it for something else, you would just let us know. And then we would talk to bond counsel and just make sure that that's still kind of a lateral move, in the right direction. That, we still have statutory authority to do that. It doesn't require a hearing or a plan or something to be, drafted.
So if I'm understanding that right, if the parking lot in Sandstone could just be patched because we had something happened at the parking lot in Pine City, we need to spend 50,000 there, we could do that?
Yep, I think that Sandstone parking lot was, again, more so even a de minimis at 75 grand is a small part of this. So it's really, I think, even off the radar, but what it does is there's a relationship between that and the last capital improvement plan bonding we did out at Sandstone there. So there, it is in that plan, in some way, shape, or form. So if we go back and look at the purpose of that plan, that we held that hearing for, I think there's a lot of things going on, if I remember, Health and Human Services, things, the new building on campus there. So there's a lot of latitude, I think, on that parking lot, for sure. Transfer station buildings, that's part of what we call the solid waste statutory authority. So there's clear authority to anything related to a transfer station will work, landfill, whatever, lots of latitude there. Courthouse, there's separate statutory authority within certain parameters for courthouse, not needing public hearings and things, a lot of latitude there. The furniture, yep, that's sort of off the map right now, but jail and courthouse cameras, there's, that's more of an equipment purchase there, lots of latitude there for, general capital equipment for a county. So really you do have a lot of latitude, kind of move the shells around here a little bit. If we move them too far off, then we need to kind of talk about where we're going with some of that money.
Mr. Chair, Mark LeBron here.
Yep.
Oh, Mark.
Yeah, I don't see us replacing that roof in the next 5 years. 5 years would probably be the soonest. It's 13 years old right now. It's just a big ticket item that you need to be aware will be out there in the out years. So just, I don't know if that helps your discussion.
Well, and that's part of my thing too. Like, I think the 1610 building roof though, you were planning on that in the near future, right? If I remember right?
Yeah, we'd like to replace that here, next year for sure.
Which one
But
was that?
we do have money set aside, you know, with the existing budget with the 75,000.
But what we could do is use this money and then use that other money to catch up on other projects that,
And or build out for that
right.
courthouse roof that's 5 years plus out. Was it, Mark, was there anything on that list that you seen or wanted to add, or were thinking of anything?
Well, I think we're just looking at big items. You know, we have what I would call, you know, maintenance, replacement of boilers and equipment and things like that. I mean, those aren't, you know, it might be 25,000 here and 25,000 there. We didn't have anything budgeted to finish parking in Sandstone on the 1610 building. And I know the sheriff's department would like to get that parking finished there. So, you know, nothing to me stands out as you know, something you would bond for, in my opinion, but there's always projects that come up.
So remind me again, when we make a resolution to do this, we need this list pretty much finalized. And knowing in this list that we do have some leeway to do like projects. Is that what I'm understanding?
Mr. Chair, from,
Correct. Yeah.
And our drop dead date for making that decision to go forward is when?
The sooner the better.
So next meeting, first meeting in October, give me a date.
And so my thought is you've got kind of two decisions to make, and maybe one's not even a real decision. The soonest decision, or the decision that needs to be made as soon as possible would be that we want to refund and we want to take X amount of cash out. And then we have this sketch list of projects we're thinking. Per Todd, it sounds like that's at this. The projects can be flexible within the guidelines. So, I mean, that's the kind of non-decision.
So
We got our list, but
so if we just pretend here, I'm thinking out loud, I get in trouble for that sometimes because people take that verbatim and write it in a paper or something, but we're just thinking out loud here. That if we said, we want a refund, I think everybody's kind of been shaking their head that we want a refund. And this idea that, you know, only adds 194,000 to the end of our payment. So if we pretend we said, we want a refund, we want that program that's gonna get us about 1.4 million. We want the staff and maybe a building committee to come back with a list that does not exceed 1.4 million. Is that work, or is that what we need to do, or what?
Mr. Chair, this is David. I don't think that the list that would come back, if it were different than what's in front of you today, would be so different that you wouldn't have the flexibility built in based on the way Todd described the flexibility that you have.
The only thing I'm a little concerned about is the largest ticket number on the list is something that probably ain't gonna need to be done in the next 5 years. So do we just look at that take that right off the top of the list, because I don't want to get in the habit of just spending money because we got it.
That's why I said that if we can do this in two steps and say, so bond council knows, Kelly knows, we're gonna go ahead and refund bonds. It's not to exceed that amount of 1.4 million. But I think the building committee and staff probably need to go back and give me a better warm fuzzy of what these projects are. I don't know. That's just my opinion.
And Kelly, if we don't, it was like, if we just cashed out the bond, it was 890 some thousand or
Like
eight.
830,000 of savings.
Okay, so now, because we're getting closer to that number than if we just, you know.
Take the 400 for the roof off there.
Yeah, so I guess what I'm just thinking out loud again, like Steve had said, what if we went that option? All that's gonna do is, that's gonna keep everything the same.
You're saying option 2, take the cash.
And then do the projects we need to do, but does that change our next so many years too, or does it look the same as if we borrowed?
Correct. So if you did that, just capture the savings, then your payment would stay the same, your maturity would stay the same.
Okay. But then that,
The list gets smaller.
yeah, and yeah, I'm just thinking.
Yeah, the only thing happens then is if something does come up, we could have to take care of it with levy.
Yeah.
The have to project.
The idea is, we know what the bond payment is every year. And if we have to levy $400,000 for a roof 3 years from now, or 7 years, 6 years, 5 years from now, that's 3% of our levy. Just for the roof. And so.
Yeah, as long as we don't extend that bond payment, we're really not extending it that much, so, you know, we're not gonna hit the.
Not extending it at $1 million, we're extending it at 194,000.
But we can't sit on the money for the roof, so that's what I gathered.
Right, I just think there's a little more work to do to give the board members a better warm fuzzy, and I would rather do this and say, go ahead, we're gonna do it. Don't do all your calculations that does not exceed 1.4 million. But I would send it back to the facilities committee, I guess it would be, and staff to tighten up that list.
Kelly, Mr. Chair.
Mhm.
I really struggle with this. So which option, the last option to me seems like that would have the most impact for taxpayers. The other options really wouldn't have an impact, correct?
Now, the first option, that would reduce the levy.
That would have a positive impact for taxpayers, correct?
No.
No?
Neutral. It's
Neutral, okay, that's kind of what I thought.
All the options are neutral. We're either financing on the savings stream, you know, with that extra 700 some thousand, or we add some maturities to the back of this bond in 31 and 32 where your debt drops off anyway. So instead of lowering your levy, we're actually kind of filling it in a little bit at the end. So the impact is zero. All the options is zero.
Except for the option of actually capturing the savings and not cashing out, right?
If we didn't capture the savings with these new money projects, your taxes would go down. So we're filling it in so it stays the same, right? So if we didn't have these new money projects in here and just did the refunding all by itself, you'd have $80-some thousand a year in taxpayers levy savings.
Except the part we're missing, if we took first option, we would save $70,000 a year in payments. But then if we're gonna put a new roof on the 1610 building, that costs $75,000. So we're basically even. Then the next year we save $70,000 and we do the parking lot in sandstone. So we're even again.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have to remodel the courthouse, and we want to do that sooner than later. So where are we going to find the 300,000 to do that? We'd take the $70,000 savings and do the remodel in 3 years, which now we've already used 2 years of that. So we're looking at 5 years before we remodel the courthouse. And then if we're gonna save the money before we do the roof on the courthouse, we're looking at putting 70,000 aside for what, 4 years, six years? So we're looking at 10 years. That roof has to last us 10 years. So we're not saving any money. We're spending the money, because these are projects we have to do. So we're either levying new money to do it, or we're borrowing the money and keeping our payments the same, and we can do them when they need to be done.
We're just extending our payments, is what we're.
If we take the 1.4 million, then we're extending the loan, so to speak, another year, correct?
But not at the full 20%.
But not at 100% payment.
Right.
Right.
20%.
That'd be 20, yeah, so 20%.
What's it look like if we just borrow $1 million? If we take that roof off there, just borrow back $1 million, still kick off the list? Because the thing I'm worried about is if you go to 1.4, you gotta spend 85%, so that's 1.23. All of a sudden, we're at $1 million. Like I said, I just don't want to get in the habit of borrowing money and then having to spend it.
That's why I think it needs to go back to committee, because there's a lot of those kind of questions that I would rather have the committee work on.
We can find ways.
We've got time, right?
I don't want to be.
Got 2 weeks.
I'm with you, Josh. Hard to borrow money to spend.
Yeah.
But if we capture the savings, how much work can we get done just by capturing our savings?
Yeah.
Just to clarify something that Commissioner Moore said, if I understand, and Todd, make sure I have this correct, we have to spend 85% of the total bond proceeds, not the cash out. So it's 85% of 8+ million.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So it does, so it's 85% of the total issue of over 8 million. So philosophically, Josh, what you say is, absolutely valid, and borrowing money just to sit on cash does not make sense. But I just wanted to be sure everybody understood the arithmetic and the 85%.
Okay. But that's on paying back the bond and everything.
Yeah.
No, that's just,
Yeah.
so we borrow $8 million.
Yeah.
We pay off the old bond,
Yeah.
which virtually takes all of the money except for the $1.4 million.
Okay.
Which is all, paying off the old.
Pretty much have already spent 85% of
I
it.
see.
Paying off.
So I was mistaken. Okay.
Yeah,
I was
so you were
on this.
correct. Philosophically,
Yep.
your point is valid. I just wanted to make sure everybody understood how that arithmetic worked.
Thanks for clarifying that.
So yes, we
What's that
can,
number then?
what is
that number then?
is the 8.2,
1.4 million of cash out, so that gives you a 9.9,625,000, of bonds, so that 85% would be 8,554,000, which 8,225,000 is what pays off the existing bonds, so you'd have like 225,000 that you have to spend within 3 years.
which is
done.
So that's an important regulatory piece.
Yeah.
But for our purposes, it's really not the driving factor.
Yeah, see, I was thinking,
Yeah,
if we got hung, we'd have to spend 1.2 million of the saving, yeah.
that's what I thought too.
Thank you, because that does.
Yeah,
So we can go back and evaluate the list and come back to the meeting September 15th. Would that work, Todd?
Yeah, I was thinking, that's what I was thinking. I could come back with another pre-sale report, kind of talk about it again to kind of move forward. I don't know, do you have a meeting on the 9th too, or not?
Well, we do. I just don't know that there's time to get the committee together with the Labor or the Memorial, no, it's Labor Day, with the Labor Day holiday, and getting prepared for that meeting, which is a budget committee anyways. But I mean, if that's necessary, we could try that. And then this maybe isn't the preferred course, but if we reduced the number of cash out to either 1.05, which subtracts the roof, or if we decreased it to the 750-ish number,
795.
so about 800,000, I think we could make the list work over the next 3 years.
Well, and that's what I'm thinking, even if we leave this list where it's at and we spend 300,000 off the list, we're still good as far as that 85%.
Right.
In 3 years, the money just gets refunded and we don't spend it. So I don't know, I guess that makes me a little more comfortable at just getting it done, I guess.
Yeah, and,
So, but
so my question goes back to what do we need to do today to move forward, if anything? Or what is our drop dead date when we have to have a resolution or whatever prepared to do the whole hot tamale?
Let's plan on September 15th to kind of have the same discussion and a report in front of you again, maybe to go forward then with whatever option you choose, and I can just modify it administratively after that. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know if we were supposed to approve the whole thing today or have a discussion today.
I think what we would do is then so we don't really need a resolution or anything on my side. I would just delay the bond sale. Instead of, I would redo that schedule on page 5 of my report. I'd probably go from October 6th then instead. I'd go October 20th, and just kind of move everything forward. If you guys make a decision on September 15th on the path, then we can just readjust the schedule on down the line.
And Mr. Chair, if I can just make one more comment, and if maybe it's helpful, maybe it's not, but if we take out the roof and we're down to that $1 million level, in my mind, that is close enough to the 795,000 number that you could just refinance based on maximizing the cash out without increasing the payment, without increasing the term, which was the best of all worlds that we had thought about. And we can make those remaining projects fit within that $795,000 number.
The only problem with that is I don't know where we're gonna find 400,000 in however many years it takes to wear out that courthouse roof. I mean, we can't find an extra 100,000 around to do stuff, so
Mr. Chair,
if we do, and Kelly,
That's why I suggested it goes back to committee and the committee gets a better handle on really what is solidly needs to be in this.
I think the only option we could do, if we just take the cash, so then we'll have to keep our building fund, at least something in the building fund levy to start building that like you do with technology.
And
if we take option 2, which I'm in favor of, but then we're not gonna be able to eliminate that building fund levy that we have now. That's that'd be 75,000.
The math to me gets real fuzzy then. We're going backwards. Because we're spending good money just to say we're saving money, which we aren't.
I know.
You know,
But see, is the building levy ever gonna go away completely? That's the first thing.
that, probably not.
It's just the number might be less.
But if we know we have some big looming projects coming, I think it's better to bond for those so they get evened out over this 12-year period instead of, if we don't have the money and we got a short-term borrow for them, we're paying a lot more in interest for that. Or we're borrowing from our own funds that cuts some other project we're gonna do out of the picture.
It's the savings we just put in the building fund, which we're doing the building fund now.
yeah. And to Matt's thing, I mean, we've been planning on a courthouse roof we've been talking about it looming out there for a while and.
But how much money do we have in our saved up right now in that account?
It gets hit hard by,
Anything?
it's used all.
Zero.
Yeah.
We've used it all.
There's always something that breaks. That's the problem.
That's what I mean. Anyway.
I just have a hard time borrowing money to sit there. Either way, it costs you, even if it's 0.7 some percent, it's still costing you money.
No, I understand completely. We don't want to borrow money just because we can, because we spend it.
So, Mr. Chair, to me, that's the argument that we can't go back and work on the list and come back with a roof that's 5 years out, right? The term of the bond is only till 2031 or 32.
Yeah.
So that 5 years is like halfway into that would not make sense. And so that's where, if you take that out, knowing that in the future, we will have to figure that out, but that's only one of 1,000 things we're gonna have to figure out, right?
But I don't think maybe I'm wrong. I don't think, my sense is we're not gonna make that big of a strike 400,000 out of this thing without thinking about it longer than 10 minutes here at a meeting.
Do I understand it correctly? We have to spend 85% of it in how much time?
3 years.
But we're gonna spend 80% of it in one day. Because we're gonna pay back the old.
So the roof project is really moved as far as pulling out of there, right?
But
Well, I would plan.
Matt, we're spending the 80% of it the first day we get it.
Cause that's the whole, to pay off the old bond and everything.
Right.
So we're not gonna be obligated nothing. I mean, really, if we decide we want this 1.4 million and we spend 200,000 of it is all we gotta spend out of there, is all you're obligated out of it. Or 250 or whatever you said, so. But I kinda like the option we were looking at is just cashing it out. Like David had said, you're close enough to that number that I think you can, and that's the best option for the county, that's the best option for the taxpayers too.
Exactly. You have to think of it.
Personally, I mean, yeah, stuff's gonna come up and things are gonna, but they always do.
And Steve, I'm just not understanding exactly what the committee would do, because these dollar numbers.
If somebody wants to make a motion to move forward today, I'd take a motion. I just sensed that there were people here that we were confused about what 80% was. We were confused about a lot of things, and it seems like we get a lot of clarity when it comes back, but if somebody wants to move forward with option 2, so be it. That's where we'll go.
I didn't mean to draw a premature conclusion. I just understand that these numbers are rough estimates that will only get refined with actual bids.
Yeah.
Which we would not have.
I'm just not sure, based on what I heard in the preliminary, early discussions on that, you know, I hear, well, maybe we don't need that roof. You know,
Yeah.
so that's a $400,000 item. Have we screened all of the potential projects in the last 3 years? Is this as good a list as we're gonna get? If it is,
But we can,
and we take basically $500,000 off it, then it's a no-brainer to do option 2.
Mhm.
If I'm hearing right, if we can do the entire list and it's only adding $194,000 at the end of our payments, why wouldn't we do that?
What was that, Steve? Could you repeat that? If we do what?
If we do the whole list,
Okay, that would be option 3.
option 3, and it adds, if I heard right, 194,000 to the end of our payments, it's like, I don't know how that math works out, but it's like, why wouldn't we spend, buy a $400,000 roof for 194,000?
Good point.
Todd, can you give insight into that math? As to
Well,
Well, I
something
think
doesn't add up in my mind. I need to see a chart or something, but
yeah,
if-
I didn't want to interrupt. I kind of was letting you guys kind of go with your process here, but it adds more than that. It's filling in the year 2031 by 570,000, and then 2032 is just the additional 190. So this bond that we're refunding goes out to 2031, but it in order to keep the levy the same, we're actually putting in some principal in there too, 570,000 to kind of fill that in, and then 190 in 2032. So it's more than 190.
The 190 is the
I know.
extra year's payments.
But
Because the February 1st, 2031 payment, if we didn't take cash, would be about $460,000. Instead, we're keeping that payment up at that around $1 million.
okay, that's where I was fuzzy, because instead of getting it paid off in February, we're gonna make 2 payments that year at the regular rate,
We're gonna make one payment.
1 payment, but instead of it maturing in February, we're paying through the whole year. So we're gonna pay our full payment, and then the last year is the 194,000. Okay, that's why the math wasn't adding up in my mind.
So that 400,000 costs about 700,000?
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah.
That's our savings.
But it's actually the difference between 1.4
And the cash out.
800, so.
Yeah.
So we're paying, we're paying, we're getting $600,000 worth of work for 700,000. I mean, paying 100,000 in interest.
Yeah, that does make a little more sense.
Yeah, now it's more.
Because it is, option 2 is, like we said, the best for, I mean, money-wise, you don't get quite as much, but it is the best bang for the buck, or however
Well, it's
you
the
want.
easiest to figure out, I think.
Yeah.
And we're still done at the same maturity time. We can walk away from the thing in February of 31 and be mortgage-free on that bond, right?
Right, yep.
Now, one more quick question. If we go with that option, that frees us up some time to figure out this list, right?
Right.
I mean, we can have the list, but essentially it's cash out and then we can fine tune it, nitpick it over the next whatever and kind of go from there. So with that clarity, I guess I'd make a motion to go with option number 2.
So to add some clarity to that motion, if I could, in the packet is the resolution 2020-59. Todd, is there anything in that resolution that needs to change in order to proceed with the direction the board wants to go, which is to take the maximum cash out while maintaining the payments and the term?
Yeah, if you guys agree to that cash flow, and that total amount, I mean, this all changes up until the bond sale to the amount, so we don't want to get too hung up on that. But what I'll need to do is add that new money portion to my report. So I'll send staff, a modified pre-sale report for whatever you decide. If you decide on option 2, then I'll attach that. I'll rework the wording and the report, and then I'll give you a resolution that you can then sort of substitute for the one that you would adopt right now with the proper amount in it and the description. So, I mean, that's probably the best way to do that, because I've got to run it through my analyst again, make sure we've got the right amounts in there.
So today we just need a motion to move forward.
I would still set that up as a resolution, because I'll give you a modified resolution in the next few days.
So the motion could be to approve resolution, I lost the number, 2020-59, as will be amended by Ellers and Associates.
Okay, I'm good with that.
Yeah, I mean, that way we don't have to go back on the 15th or anything and have the board revisit this again. We'll just jump down to the bond sale on October 6th then. So if that's okay, we'll just give you guys the new modified report, because you made the motion to pass the resolution in that form, I guess. So.
What is the exact number for option 2 that?
Well, we're not going to get an exact number until the bond sale is complete.
Okay.
Because, is that correct, Todd?
Well, if you have, Kelly, does the board have that bond run? I mean, I could try to find it here quick, where we've got the refunding and the 795 or whatever added to it. So, I mean, I could get you that number. That might help here a little bit with your motion.
But what if the bond sale, something changes the day of the bond sale and the bond sell at a different rate?
Yeah, it does. We do have latitude on the selling of the bond. But I just want to make sure that, you've got the number that we know today. That's all we know is what we know today. So
right.
It always changes between now and the bond sale, but you're still going to get the proceeds that you need, but the bond might change. Bond size might change.
So on today's, it shows the 795 to keep the maturity the same and the payments the same.
795,000.
Cash.
Yeah.
Oh, here, I think I might have it. Oh, yeah. So the total was 9,020,000, right? So refunding
Yes.
8,225, new money 795. So on that resolution you have in front of you, I'd probably put 9,020,000 in there, and then we'll just add the new money description in the guts of it. But if you wanted to change the amount, that's probably what I would put in there. 9,020,000.
In that first paragraph, is that what he's saying? 9 million?
Yes, where the resolution in the packet says 8,225,000. Say 9,020,000.
Yep.
Okay. We got a motion for this resolution, but we do not have a second. It's basically option 2 that we've.
Yeah, I hate to be stick in the mud, but Kelly, could you maybe give us another overview of what actually happens in option 2? Could you do that again, so I got a really better understanding of what?
Yeah, so option 2, we will just, rather than having savings every year, so rather than having $70,000 in savings till 2031, we would be taking that out in cash. And so that's gonna result in about $795,000 of cash. And so that means that every year we won't have that savings, our payments will just stay as they currently are.
Okay.
And then the loan will mature in February of 2031, just
So-
like it is currently.
Okay, so that will stay the same then?
Correct.
Q1.
Our payments will stay the same, our maturity date will stay the same.
Yeah, okay.
We'll have this lump of cash, about $795,000 to do projects with.
And we can use that. Okay, so the 85%,
Right, we're not even gonna have to worry about the 85% at that amount, because just paying off the old bonds will cover that.
Yeah. And I think when it comes bond sale time, when all the, rates are final and everything on that October day, what we do is I think maybe we'll keep it, depending on what kind of savings we get. I don't know, do you guys wanna, I would talk to David and Kelly that morning or that afternoon, but just to kind of give us some direction would be that, if our savings is more, do you want that portion to go up a little bit with the savings, or if our savings is less? So I guess my question is, do you want that to be the maximum amount, or do you want that to kind of flow with whatever savings we get, on that day? So it could be 700 and it could be 800,000.
it could be 800,000. It could, I'd say we take as much as we can get.
Yeah.
Keep it fluid. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Keep that part. So my analyst she'll do her magic on that day, and we'll just fit in whatever new money portion works with what we're doing here. Yep. Okay.
I'll second the motion.
Okay. Is there any more discussion? I think we got it figured out now.
Option 2 is a no-brainer.
Pardon me?
It's kind of a no-brainer for option 2.
Yeah. They're all good options.
Yeah.
I mean, they're all great options. It's great I mean, you think of where it could be?
Yeah.
What if we had to borrow money and interest rates were 7%? But it's a great position to be in for us.
Well, and we've been kicking the can on these cameras and that 1610 building, the roof, I know that, and so that parking lot.
No, I'm fine. I've looked at.
Try to knock some of this stuff out.
One last question, Todd. Are these because we're getting short term, is this bond callable at any time? Not once the new bond gets issued, or is this it for the duration?
No, I think the market's pretty good about call provisions, so I think I'm gonna make these, I mean, it's a short bond the way it is, but I think I can get, them callable in 2028 for the last 3 maturities then. So I think I've been able to kind of push it a little bit. So yeah, you probably won't call it in for an interest cost savings anymore, but if you've got cash and just want to ditch it, you can certainly do that at that time.
Right, that's what I was wondering. Give us an option at some point if you got all of a sudden cash rich or something.
Future board.
Yeah, future boards. Okay, everybody understands the motion? Questions, the clerk will call the roll.
District 4, Commissioner Wickert.
Aye.
District 5, Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye.
District 1, Chair Holland.
Yes.
District 2, Commissioner Moore.
Aye.
District 3, Commissioner Chafee.
Aye. Thanks, Todd.
Yep, thanks to everybody and David and Kelly for running us all through these scenarios. You got a good team there. Keeps us all on our toes, so I appreciate the business.
All right, we'll move on to the easy stuff. Budget discussion, do we have any,
We just did that.
anything we need to?
Mr. Chair, members of the board, this item is just on here. We know we're in the midst of our budget committee meetings. The next one on the 9th is going to be the sheriff and all of the sheriff-related budgets, and then administration and all the administrative budgets. But an opportunity if you had any thoughts or questions midway through the process.
Midway through the process, I would say yesterday's budget meeting was awesome. The people that presented could all get an A on a master's thesis of how to present a budget to a elected board.
Yeah.
They did awesome work. They did a lot of homework, and that was obvious. And so I appreciated it. And thanks to the staff I know Kelly and David, you guys work with those people a lot to get them to that point to help see their numbers. And yesterday's meeting was, I came away from that or hung up that call thinking we really got some good, solid people that are working hard on this thing. So I'm very optimistic that our budget is going to come in closer to what I think it needs to be.
Mr. Chair, I thought it was a really good meeting yesterday. I just wanted to, maybe for the record, for those that might be listening, the preliminary, the 7.7, that was our big wish list, and that's what it would cost. I think people need to understand that that's not where we're going to end up. It's a process, and end up considerably less than 7.7, just for the record.
And we've had them come in at 10, 12, 15% on it.
Yeah, and for somebody, when people write that down, that's what our levy's gonna be, it's so far from, it's, like Josh said, we've had years where the first reading came in at 10, 12%, we ended up at 2.5.
And it's a process,
Minus.
Yeah.
So, but yesterday's presentations were really focused. We had a lot of, we didn't have to spend 4 hours because they were very focused and had done, they'd asked themselves all the questions we probably would have asked, so they got to a point, but it was good. So
who do we have left then? Just the
public safety, I think, right, David?
Yeah, it's really just the sheriff's office.
Jail.
in the jail. So there's a lot of budgets because it's dispatch. Then there's a bunch of small budgets that the sheriff manages. And then the administration budget. So, my department budget, commissioner budget, handful of small things.
Sounds good. Do you have anything for us, Dave? Any direction we need to be thinking about? I was just very pleased yesterday, so. We'll move on then to scheduling the truth and taxation meeting. December 3rd gonna work for people? Or no, between November 20.
It looks like we're shooting for December 3rd.
It looks like December 3rd is a good date to shoot for.
What day is that?
The Thursday?
I would just about bet Josh has a music concert if they allow that.
We're gonna have to quit working around my schedule because it's just gonna get worse and worse.
Just giving you crap, Josh.
Yeah. And I think I'm the one that pushed us back because we wanted to see, but now we don't know what's going on with.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
So that was the jinx, I'm sorry for
I
that.
wouldn't plan around anything that with how the schools are gonna be.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with the 3rd. Does anybody else?
I don't.
Okay,
Good to go.
we can just do that by consensus, can't we?
Yeah, or if you wanted to make a motion, you could. And then do you want to hold it here versus at the courthouse?
I think this is a better, got a little more space. We'll do it here.
I'll move that.
We're gonna do a motion on this? I'll second.
Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
District 5, Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye.
District 1, Chair Holland.
Yes.
District 2, Commissioner Moore.
Aye.
District 3, Commissioner Shapey.
Aye.
District 4, Commissioner McQuitt.
Aye. And then, our add 4.1 is resolution 2020-60, and that was on your table. It's the resolution supporting the challenge incarceration program in Willow River. I just think I talked to Representative Nelson yesterday. He worked with David and drafted this resolution, but I told him, we had a good chat about it. It's a great program. 50 jobs in Little Pine County is a big deal. I mean, 50 jobs in Hennepin County is a number. Here, it's a huge deal. And it's not just to save jobs, it's a really good, proven good program. And so I told Representative Nelson and he told me the same thing. We're not going to give up without a fight. We'll do what we possibly can to, I don't know when they're dropped. He did not know either when their absolute drop date, final decision is going to be made. If they've already made it, I don't know. But anyway, there's still hope in his mind. So I think there should be hope in our mind. So we need a motion on this resolution, if so desired.
McCrowd will make it. Second.
We got a motion by Mickret, second by Chafee. Are there any discussion? Questions?
I'm just curious, was there any talk about what their plans are when they close it? Are these employees going to be able to go somewhere else if this happens, or what is going to happen to the inmates? I mean,
generally they're always given the option, but if you've got a house in Willow River and
you don't want to go to Timbuktu. Okay.
Water, I don't know. So.
But the inmates, they'll just go into,
Well,
and that's a special program.
what Representative Nelson had heard is, and Terry Fawcett also told me they're looking at moving this program to another prison.
Really?
Oh, he thinks that won't work because, I mean, it's a whole different program. They don't fit in with the prison population. That's why it works.
This has been a very successful program for a long time.
Yeah.
That's too bad. Now, hopefully they can figure it out.
Any other questions? If not, Debbie, will you call the roll?
District 1, Chair Holland.
Yes.
District 2, Commissioner Moore.
Yes.
District 3, Commissioner Chafee.
Aye.
District 4, Commissioner McRae.
Aye.
District 5, Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye. Okay, we'll move on to Corona's response update. Public health. We have anybody?
Yep. Good morning, Mr. Chair. Sam is in a meeting right now related to the pandemic, so I have some information to pass along on her behalf.
All right.
Cases are increasing in Pine County pretty quickly. We were at 139 last Monday, and I think we're up to about 150 or a little bit more than that. A lot of it is concerning because there are cases of community transmission with no known contact. And the state overall has had an influx of cases recently. Some of it stems from a backlog in reporting and the positive cases and not reporting to MDH as the labs are required to, but also just a general increase in the number of positive cases. Over the weekend, I believe there were over 1,000 new cases both days. Nationally, we're sitting at just 6 million cases with 183,000 deaths so far. And I would just like to add on public health's behalf and just on the community's behalf, like people are, I know, just kind of over it and just when that happens, sometimes cases can get transmitted, the virus can get transmitted from one person to another. And what that could potentially impact is our school districts opening. They are all scheduled to open in person starting full time. Parents do have the option to distance learn, but all schools in Pine County are choosing to open up in-person learning. And if our numbers go over a certain amount, that could impact how school and education is delivered to our students. So that's just a friendly reminder, just, to take this seriously and to really be mindful of where you're at and practice good hygiene.
Thanks, Becky. I think that number, if I remember right, is 29 new cases, something, in Pine County for the size of our county. And then the schools have to go into a different mode of working. So I hope people are serious about it, and because that's disruptive, to say the least. Kids are ready to go back, from what I had 3 young guys stop to check on hunting on my farm, and they're all seniors this coming year, and they're really excited. I mean, they want to go back. They're not happy they can't play football, but they want to go to school.
They do, and I think that routine is just really good for everybody, including our students, and just developmentally, kids need that social interaction. If it doesn't happen at school, it has to happen someplace else, but school's kind of something that we can all get behind, feel like that's a safe place for our kiddos, so just really hoping that can continue if possible.
Thank you. Any questions for Becky? All right. CARES Act funding. Wow, David, you were doing a lot of work. that list you sent out was.
Yeah, oh, that, yes. So we did receive 43 applications for the business assistance grants. The total dollar amount was $334,000. There were only a handful of businesses, like 4 or 5, that based on their application, that we did not think they qualified or met the criteria of the program. Don Hickman from the Initiative Foundation is reviewing all of the documentation to verify that it matches what the written request was. And he is finding that a lot of the businesses did not submit the documentation or didn't submit all of the documentation that they were claiming. And so he's taking longer than he anticipated because he is following up with all of those businesses. And so if the documents weren't submitted, they'll have an opportunity to provide them. We won't just automatically disqualify them, but it is a little slower than he had anticipated. But he thought he might be done with that today. So the plan still is that we will have the businesses that have been reviewed and approved, they should get checks starting the week of the 8th. So that's, I think the initial timeline that we laid out was that first full week of September. On the nonprofit piece, we are planning to open that program September 8th to the 18th. And the maximum on that will be $5,000. And so we'll be starting to promote that this week, but that will open on the 8th. And then once we wrap the current business process up and get the nonprofit underway, we will look at doing a round 2 of the business assistance. There are some businesses that have reached out that were not able to get their submission in for the first round. And so we do have funding left. And so we're just going to automatically open another second round of funding as soon as we can. Any questions on those programs?
I have one. When does it close? And when do we have to return the funds to the state?
We have to return the funds December 1st. So moving on from the business and the nonprofit program, the libraries, we've gotten a request from the library for about $50,000. The library district sent a similar request to each of the counties that they serve. Carla, the executive director, is going to be on a video conference with the regional administrators a week from this Friday, just to review that and explain that because there were some questions. But I think my initial thought was most of those requests seemed pretty reasonable from the library, and the total amount was just shy of $50,000. And so I anticipate that we will fund all or most of that. On, I guess, open issues, we have an opportunity, I think, to do some support for phase. I don't know exactly what that looks like, but we know we have heard from them that they are in significant financial distress with the pandemic. And so we are in a position that we can probably work with them to give them, a measurable amount of CARES Act funding. And so I'll be looking to reach out to Tim in the next week to get that conversation going. And then the school districts have also made some inquiries, and based on the business assistance program that we got, we probably allocated more money to that program than we are going to have businesses. So one option is we could look at eliminating or raising the employee cap. The program we had limited it to 50 employees and below, trying to focus on the smaller businesses. So we could potentially raise that. But then even if we do that, we probably have more money in that program. And so we might be able to reallocate some of that to the schools. And then I thought there was one more open issue, but Pine Technical and Community College. So this afternoon, we have a video conference with the college, and Josh and John are invited to that. They are going to propose a workforce development program that they could implement prior to the end of the year to help with training of the workforce. And so I'm looking forward to that, and that could be a very good use of these funds as well to help support that program.
Anybody have any questions? I got one, David, when reading through that list, it almost seemed to me like there were some business, take restaurants for instance. Some restaurants applied and got funded. Did the others not know about it, or did they didn't think they did anything that would get them the funds? How comes? Do you have any indication?
I have no indication, but I think when you look at the list, everyone can think of businesses that didn't apply that we would think would be eligible to apply.
Right.
So I think the word maybe gets out once the checks start to circulate.
That's what I was wondering, if this next round, you aren't gonna get inundated because people go, wow, Joe Blow got 10 grand. I should apply for that. Maybe I could get 5.
Yeah, and maybe we will.
Okay.
And that would be, if they're legitimate costs, that's what we would want, right? We want this money to get out to the community.
Have you folks heard anything from your business community that how come I didn't know about that or anything like that?
I've had a few calls. I gotta be honest with you, I've called people, businesses, and said, you need to look at this, see if you're eligible. I've probably had 2 calls that I directed to David, so, yeah, it's been a fair amount.
The Pine City Chamber, I think, did a good job of promoting it, and so, I don't know, Josh, have you heard anything?
No, I'm surprised. I forwarded this off to a couple of businesses that I would assume.
I talked to a couple of them and I didn't see them on the list, so they must have, I don't know, that maybe they're doing fine.
Yeah, I think, sorry.
What I got from some of my constituents that called, that it was really hard for them to come up with the receipts, that they would need. And, they got right to that point and they just, well, we don't have the receipts. So they just quit.
That is a challenge, right? And the program requires that we have committed to the federal government that if an audit reveals any of these expenditures were not eligible, that we will repay that money. And so, just in, doing our due diligence, we feel we have to make sure that there's a documentary record that is adequate to substantiate the charges. Otherwise, we would expose the taxpayer. And we do require that the applicants, agree to repay the county. But even if we end up there 2 or 3 years from now, that probably is a very painful process.
Right.
So we're just trying to make sure we get the documentation up front.
Yeah.
And I, recognize that can be a disincentive to some.
But I don't know, you see places that bought Jersey barriers and stuff so they could have outside dining, and they weren't on the list. I thought, well, that seems pretty no-brainer to me. Even if it was $200, it's.
So if a restaurant just closed and then made no attempt to do outdoor seating or anything, so they really can't apply for anything.
Well, they can if they are paying a lease or a mortgage.
What that would fall on
the
business program side, wouldn't it?
I'm sorry?
But that wouldn't fall underneath that small business thing that happened earlier, would it? Or they would have to maintain employees to get that one, right?
Well, for the county program, they would not need to maintain employees. They could have stayed open, they could have closed. And we did include an eligible expense as up to 3 months of lease or mortgage payments for the business, as a way to recognize that if you're a retail business, you are impacted because you just couldn't transact business the way you were used to. And so even if you didn't spend a lot of money on sanitizer or plexiglass, you still had a negative financial impact. And so that probably was the most common request was for a mortgage or lease payment.
Okay. During that process, David, was there any, I still go back to our sales tax collection. Is there any indication of, there must be some businesses who have seen an increase in business because otherwise our sales tax collection wouldn't go up. And what kind of businesses are they?
I'm just guessing, but Walmart is probably the big driver there.
But I thought that too, and if you go to Walmart, half of what they sell is not taxable. You know, clothing and food.
And to think about Walmart too, is they've been operating on 40% less hours too.
Right.
Than what they normally do.
Right.
So, I don't, as far as the retail, I don't know, it's interesting, the sales tax.
The NAPA stores.
Yeah, I wish. I'm not complaining, but it ain't all of it, I'll tell you that, but.
I know the hardware store, 2 hardware store owners have told me they've had the best 3 months in a row they've ever had in the 100 and some years of being in existence.
And it is funny, people don't realize, but if there's, American people spend money, no matter what, you know, they don't bury it in the backyard. So they find new ways to spend it.
I thought yesterday as the FedEx truck was driving out of our driveway, maybe all the people sitting home ordering online, because you're paying tax on that now. Maybe that's a big contributor to it. I wish we knew exactly where it was all coming from. Anyway, we'll move on. Commissioner updates, Snake River.
Yeah, we did have a meeting. It was kind of a almost kickoff meeting of the One Watershed, One Plan. Just going over, they're asking what they want, what we're looking for what you want in the plan and that kind of stuff. So kind of get to know some people and see how that goes.
Regional Development Commission.
Yeah, I sat in that one. We were notified there back in July that 2 of our applications for grants were approved under the coronavirus. One was 400,000, the other was 550,000. So with that, they took and hired an extra person to do all the paperwork and applications there. They had 35 applicants and did offer it to one gal who did accept it, I believe. Other than that, we over in Lindstrom there, Deutschland Meats applied for a loan through us and we approved it to keep them up and running. It's a local meat market. It's been there for years and had some tough times, but hopefully this will get them up and running again. Last but least there in the transportation world, Uber has been seeing a lot of calls, but for delivery calls lately, not for transportation of people, but they've been kind of changing there a little bit and accommodating all that, but people are still calling to move too, but a lot more delivery calls. So that was about it.
And NLX.
Yes, we met we finally had a meeting, should put it that way, on August 26th. It basically was Amtrak has 2 priorities. That's, they want a second train to Chicago, and then they want the Duluth, Minneapolis to Duluth. I don't know which one is the first priority. There was a lot of discussion about lobbying the federal government there. Although other than that, the main item they did was they talked about each county's contribution or cities, and they reduced that by 10%. It was a fairly quick meeting, just trying to keep the idea alive. Yeah, keep the toe in the water. And if I could, Mr. Chair, I have a couple more meetings that are on there.
Yeah.
Go while I have the floor. Okay. We had an emergency meeting with SWCD yesterday. For those who don't know, the district manager for SWCD has resigned that position. I was just trying to figure out how they're gonna proceed from, in the interim until they hire a new district, manager. So it's gonna be a split. Brad Matlock from Carleton County is gonna kind of oversee and be the contact person. He's gonna spend some time with them if they need, some help with that. But, Forrester Paul, that is already there, he's a staff, he's gonna still run the TEP and all that stuff. So they're gonna keep it going so the people don't have to worry. And then Dave and Steve and we're gonna have a meeting with the two from their board, I think September 8th, to see what the county can do to help and, reach out to maybe improve our relationship with them in any way we can. And then finally, there was a zoning meeting last week also, and that was for that Snake River project down on the, below the old, where they redid the dam there. And that preliminary plat was approved. The project manager, or whatever you want to call him, he withdrew his variances and just went with what could be done by statute, and there really was no way to not approve the preliminary plat. Then that just moves it on to the next process. So, and the discussion that I think will probably come up for the county, or I think it's all township, but which road, are they gonna build a new road in there, or is the township gonna have to fix up the road that's in there and that kind of thing? So you're gonna probably hear about that on the south end. I'm sure you've heard about all the projects now, but it's a sensitive area.
One thing that I thought of during that process is, could we get the Great River Energy land people to come to a committee of the whole meeting and talk to us? They own a lot more property along the river. It's all in that transition river area.
Is it all on the Snake? You mean they own more?
It just keeps going. They own a half a mile on each side of the river, I think, below the bridge.
Oh, even downriver from 9? You mean?
Okay.
Even downstream from County Road 9?
Yes. Oh, half a mile or so, if not more. But maybe just to come and talk about what are their plans? Are they gonna keep selling it to developers? Are they why did they sell that chunk? And,
because they've been paying taxes on it or whatever, right, recovering some of their dollars.
I would just like to have a discussion with them, so we can round somebody up and see. Anything else?
No, I'm good, thank you.
I had a meeting, AMC Blue Ribbon Committee last week, and we kind of wrapped up where we thought we've gone and are going to take a little bit of a break from that committee and see how things go. But I think 3, we're calling them transformational changes that can come out of this whole pandemic and meeting thing, were jails. I think our public safety committees need to really look at the role county jails are playing, and the lot less people in them than there were 6 months ago.
That's a good point. We have our meetings coming up on that. Our policy meetings are going to be virtual.
Yeah.
14th or something, yeah.
Pay attention, Matt. There's some real movement around the state, and I think I volunteered Terry Fawcett to be on a committee with the AMC, because he's a big mover and shaker in that, that you're shifting a lot of those people that were in jails to probation, yet they're not funding probation. How is that going to work? Whatever. Anyway, the other is in Health and Human Services, and Becky's been on top of a lot of those discussions, and we're, those temporary waivers we got extended for the most part, but they're gonna go away next end of June. So can we have some of those changes put in statute between now and then? Some of them are such no-brainers to me, but we'll see where that goes. And the other thing is telework. What role should AMC be playing in helping counties like Pine County as we transition to more and more people teleworking and the supervision of them? And so I think the way counties do business is gonna be forever changed in those 3 areas.
Mr. Chair,
Anybody got anything else?
I do have one.
Yep.
I noticed that the AMC policy thinks we're not having that meeting this year, so you have to check your emails so you can catch your committees.
Right.
That's all I wanted to add.
Good thought, yeah. If you're we're all on some policy committee, check your email from AMC, because normally we'd go to a place and have those meetings, and they're gonna be virtual meetings now. The input they get from people like us is what drives the train, so.
And it's really busy this year.
If we want to sit back and complain, and we haven't gone through any of those meetings, it's our fault then. That's all I got. Anybody got anything else? We're at the end. Let's declare the meeting adjourned. Thanks, folks. Nice seeing y'all behind the mask.
That's kind of nice.
Hope it's not 6 more months.
Was the last meeting in person?
March, I think it was March 24th, wasn't it?